Love Eternal is a game about falling, a precision platformer where you flip gravity to control your momentum. It's also about falling in love, by which I mean it's a surreal psychological horror. Love Eternal is one of the weirdest games I've ever played. On the surface, it's about an insane entity that has trapped Maya in order to win her love, using birthdays, boomer memes, and whatever else. But deeper down, it's pushing the boundaries of meta-horror farther than most games dare.
Wait, is this a horror game?
I finished my first run with a lot of questions. Who taught this elder god about rage comics? What does the after credits scene mean? And what part of Love Eternal is reality? And what part
We're going to be playing a new game.
is just a game?
It's called Love Eternal?
I'm Jenna Stoeber, your expert on horror, video games, and what lies between. I've broken this up into 3 segments: the platforming, the visual novel, and the VTuber section. I will spoil absolutely everything about it, so I highly recommend playing it before continuing here. If you have trouble beating it, I have uploaded my full playthrough on my VOD channel. A link is available in the top right corner of this video. Love Eternal opens with Maya sitting down to dinner with her parents and her sister Simone having been ditched by her friend Lacey. After answering a phone call, Maya finds everyone is gone and she is elsewhere. That leads us to the first section, the platforming. You can switch gravity and move freely left and right. Gems restore the gravity flipping ability mid-air. The levels are cleverly designed to make momentum your greatest asset and danger. The gems are positioned such that you have to flip gravity before you hit them, or the force of your momentum will leave you spiked. The hardest rooms require you to juggle yourself between these gems. The overarching story is first hinted at during the tutorial, with this carving of a woman surrounded by dog angels. We meet Devesh, who's been trapped in a similar dog statue. He says that both you and she, the first mention of an unnamed entity, are trapped in her mind. He says, "You must have been lonely." In a flashback, we learn that his son Ethan ditched family plans for what seemed like not the first time. Devesh walked out of his home and into the castle, never to return. He is fully entombed, leaving you alone again. But at least you have a goal: escape from the goddess. But her castle is strange. At times it looks made of stone with murals. Other times it's got streetlights, cars, graffiti, and billboards, all draped in netting. And sometimes it looks a lot like Maya's home. We have a few early encounters here with a warped version of Maya's father and sister. Simone defies the boundaries of the game space, walking out of frame and contorting in a way that's remarkably eerie for a bundle of pixels. On my first playthrough, I thought this was the unnamed goddess possessing Simone. Our actual first encounter with the goddess comes later. She looks like Maya and hopes that we will be a better vessel than Devesh. We see the end result of the goddess's love. She took over Devesh's life, forcing his loved ones to listen to the most deranged birthday song ever.
Who's Mr. Birthday? Here he comes.
When she grew bored, she walked out of his life and told the partially endoggened original that she found someone new. Like Simone, the goddess is unconstrained by the game's scenes. She cuts through the castle and lands outside the home's frame. We see that Maya has been ditched. When she answers the goddess's call, the goddess transforms, this time, into Maya. There are a few scant frames to show us what she really looks like. The story has looped back to the starting cutscene, but the platforming continues to ramp up in difficulty, which I highlight because that's not true for the whole game. As we continue to explore, we reach something that looks like an exit, only to find the opening draped in netting. We backtrack into Maya's house where we finally get some answers from our dupe. This is where the game goes truly off the rails. The goddess's story is told through a mix of stock photos and relief murals, or what I call Mesopotamian clip art. A powerful entity was cast out with her dog Sweetie, and her vast and weird power trapped her in her own mind. After Sweetie passed, she sought others who felt exiled and gave them shelter by turning them into pets and trapping them in dog statues. She lives as them until growing bored, then finds another. And we get a title drop. After this presentation, I understood the story of the game better, but the style of the game less. Because how does this insane entity know about clip art? Platforming is only half the gameplay of Love Eternal. The other half is an extended point-and-click visual novel. It's a game within a game. Everything, or almost everything, that we see in this section was created by the goddess in order to rewrite Maya's history. It's a kind of love inception. We can tell because the house is littered with dog references, like the dog tag on Maya's house. Maya is her pet, and this visual novel is training school. Maya's mother seems to be the same person based on this sweater pattern, but her father and sister have been replaced by Devesh and Devesh's son, Ethan. In class, we meet our erstwhile friend Lacey, or at least a version played by the entity. Lacentity asks us about our hobbies and learns that Maya is a fan of manga and comics. She enjoys a series reminiscent of Oh My Goddess, about a girl who's contacted by the goddess Alice Gold via the phone. Sound familiar? The Lacentity invites us over for a birthday party, an echo of her experience as Devesh. She's even reusing decoration assets. We see that she's been trying to learn more about her hobbies. She may be an insane goddess, but at least she listens. Except that the search engine has misinterpreted her oracular summonings as a request for rage comics. If she wasn't evil before, she certainly is now. Maya lends Lacentity the goddess manga and escapes. Back at home, she has an encounter with Simone, who tells us she's not supposed to be here. This is where the visual novel starts to fall apart. Lacentity demands to know if we saw Simone before she disappeared. We get an intrusion from the real world, the text from Lacey ditching us. The next morning, we answer a phone call, only this time, there's someone on the line. It's the voice of Alice Gold.
Hello, you've reached the Goddess Technical Helpline.
Lacentity returns the manga with some corrections, causing Maya to snap and say they aren't friends. The Lacentity responds in the most damning way she knows, with PowerPoint. Instead of having clip art this time, Lacentity is using the rage memes she recently learned about. But Maya's not having it. What's an insane god to do? Into the dog statue Maya goes. She breaks free and runs through a field of dog statues, each the tomb of an innocent person. Maya is back in the castle, and the player is back in the platforming segment. As a big fan of the platforming, this was a huge relief to me. But it's tragically cut short by the sudden reappearance of the Lacentity, ushering us into the last, weirdest part, the VTuber section.
Welcome everyone, how are y'all doing tonight?
A VTuber in the shape of Alice Gold has just started playing a new game.
It's called Love Eternal?
She comments on our gameplay as though she were playing. This section is very cheeky. She points out secret passageways, jokes that her lore is official, and claims these kinds of games aren't known for their stories. I see what you're doing here. And take it from a professional live streamer, her patter is dead on.
I keep forgetting to take a drink. Thank you, chat. Thank you. It's a good thing I have those redeems.
She's voiced by actual VTuber Nina Saotome, who live streams on Twitch at the link above. Since this is Alice Gold's first stream of Love Eternal, we're back at the tutorial. Every so often, we get a new level more in line with the difficulty arc we were at before the visual novel, but not quite enough to satisfy me. This leads us to the final challenge. This single room took me about 30 minutes on my first playthrough.
We did it! Guys, we finally did it! We finally did it!
We didn't do anything, Alice Gold. It was all me. After that trial, Maya lands back at the first uncanny encounter in the house, where our father was stretched into a spider. For a moment, it seems like we're really just gonna replay the whole game. Thankfully, there's some divine intervention.
I'm going to stop this. I'll be right back.
But before we dive into that, let's talk about art. Under the game's art direction by Sam Alden, the goddess uses different styles of media to tell her story. The relief murals are impossible to date, but this figure looks remarkably similar to an Assyrian Lamassu, suggesting that her origin might have been thousands of years ago. Whereas Maya was likely plucked from the 1990s. She has a corded landline phone and a CRTV. The goddess traps her in a game with a UI similar to a 90s JRPG, and within it, she uses what looks like a Macintosh classic from the 1990s. But something weird is happening with the timeline, because Lacey used a relatively modern web browser to find rage memes, an aesthetic that wouldn't exist for another 12 or so years. And Devesh has a modern smartphone and a flat-screen monitor, but he was trapped in the castle before Maya. That suggests that the goddess is unmoored from time, hopping around to different eras to find pets. Someone needs to tell her to adopt, don't shop. I would guess Devesh is in his 60s in the 2010s or later, making him the prime audience for boomer memes. She prepared this tale in his fashion and thought the same clip art sob story would work on Maya. When it didn't, she switched to the visual novel, and when that also failed, she deployed rage memes. It's clear that the goddess harnesses the power of media to communicate and manipulate, but it raises an important question. If Maya is a 90s kid, why the hell is there a VTuber here? She doesn't know about live streaming or liking and subscribing, which, by the way, you can do right here, right now, to this very video and channel. If the goddess is trying to woo her with this, it's a very bizarre tactic. But what if the goddess isn't trying to win over Maya here? I assumed the entity had transformed into a new shape, since she briefly returned to an older form, like during the Devesh Maya transformation. When the lace entity looked out at the screen, I thought she had seen her next victim, the person playing Love Eternal. She had seen me. I thought the goddess was attempting to win me over, because although she claims people are summoned when she speaks to them, the wordless connection of the phone was enough to pull in Maya. What better way to win over a modern gamer than with a parasocial relationship? And after all, aren't I stuck here too? Thankfully, upon review, I don't think that's what the game intends. The goddess didn't transform into Alice Gold. Somebody else did. Somebody that's been watching over us the whole game. A second entity. Since Devesh warned us about a nameless she, and Simone can float and warp through walls, I initially thought she was the goddess, or was possessed by her. But regardless of her form, the goddess uses stilted, floral language, sounding out of place and time. Neither her spider-warped father nor Simone speaks this way. I believe it when she says she's Simone, I just don't think that's all she is. Someone else is speaking through her. After all, this encounter starts with a call, one Maya can't pick up because it keeps leaping away. It's like Simone is trying to prevent Maya from picking up the goddess's call, though, of course, it's too late. Both of these characters were replaced during the visual novel, perhaps because they were already being used by the second entity. The voice reciting the lines from the manga is the entity as well, marking out their intention to help.
We will be there shortly to grant your request.
The lace entity is angered by the appearance of Simone, and she scratches out Alice Gold's name and face in the manga. She's lashing out at whoever is puppeting them. When we're discovered by the goddess after escaping the dog statue, the second entity manifests as Alice Gold to reset the world. There's one specific moment that convinced me that Alice Gold was a second entity. It's when we see this mocking statue of Maya.
I don't know if she's really like that. I think the artist might be a little biased.
This really stuck out to me when I was reviewing the footage and not fighting for my life in a laser and spike grid. There's something so snarky and personal about this comment, like she knows the goddess. She might even be one of the figures that cast her out. Perhaps the figure in this mural. They are dressed in a pebbled and dotted texture rather than the barrel-like skirt the goddess is always shown in. And they're watching over somebody that looks like Maya in her room and, based on the patterns, her father, mother, and sister. I suspect the mother disappeared from the visual novel when the second entity wrestled control of her away from the goddess, and now she's watching over all of them. When we exit the so-called final challenge, we enter a familiar room. We haven't come to the end at all. So Alice Gold intervenes. She tells us,
It's time to watch.
with the same screen descending sound that we heard before the goddess's presentation, which means what happens next is a story being told by Alice Gold. Back in the visual novel, Maya's father leaves us in a car with the alarm going off, which lures in the lace entity. We attack and seem to do some real damage. When we see the empty skin later, she's missing the arm that we kicked off. The montage that follows is full of behind-the-scene game assets, sprite sheets, placeholder images, transformation frames overlapped. We see a figure walking away from Maya, dissolving, and an altered mural. This time, the pitiful goddess is throwing a tantrum. Like the biased artist comment, this feels like Alice Gold correcting the story the goddess told.
Is this really necessary?
We get a beautiful animation of a dog running free. Maya floats past the map of the game, including, for secret hunters, a few rooms we didn't platform through. Back in the house, another Maya hovers overhead before fading away. We're alone once again. I couldn't tell if Maya had actually escaped the first time I played because of the after credits scene. We're back in the visual novel, this time from Lacey's POV. But given how mean Maya is, I thought she had been replaced, and the goddess had turned her attention to Lacey. But again, the dialogue isn't quite right in tone or content. The goddess was desperate for friends, or pets. This Maya cruelly rejects Lacey. If anything, this feels like the goddess's worst nightmare, which is exactly what it is. At the end of the game, the goddess was injured, and Alice Gold trapped her in this visual novel as punishment. Now she is being tormented with rejection. Rejection eternal. Or, you might say, forever alone. The entities can exert control over media, altering it to represent their wishes. This happens a lot in the visual novel when Lace Entity has free reign. Alice Gold jokes that the difficulty spikes are because they must be changing it,
Because they don't want me to play.
implying the first entity is altering the game to make Maya's escape impossible. We also see this control at the end with the updated murals. I think the entities are only real when they appear as art. Of course, that's literally true. They're fictional characters in a fictional game. But I think they have no physical form in the universe of Love Eternal. They possess people, transform into them, and exist as media. Only twice do we see the relatively true form of the goddess, here and here. But this doesn't look like flesh and blood, it looks like the murals. For the second entity, if you needed to control a game, you'd choose a live streamer. If you needed to appear as art, you'd choose a VTuber. And if you choose a VTuber, why not make it in a shape familiar to the person you're helping? The biggest lingering questions I have about Love Eternal are which parts of Love Eternal are a game, and which parts are a game within a game. The opening cutscene is reality as relative to Maya. It's the character's lived experience, even if it's just a game to us. The visual novel portions definitely aren't reality. It was constructed by the goddess to control the narrative of her relationship to Maya. The VTuber section is also clearly a game within a game, because Alice Gold is playing it, sort of. In the final cutscene sequence, Maya travels out of Alice Gold's game and into her home. Back to life, back to reality. These game assets represent Alice Gold's version of Love Eternal. They also happen to be the same assets for the version of Love Eternal we were playing. But what about the platforming segment? Did Maya enter a game the moment she stepped out of her house? In Alice Gold's game version, we don't see the opening cutscene because she forgot to screen share. Again, so relatable. But maybe it was because that portion was reality, and therefore a domain she couldn't control. So instead, she just narrates it. Then, when Maya enters the castle, finally we can see it. So this is media, a thing that Alice Gold can control and rewrite. But it could also be that Maya was, in the story itself, just a video game character being manipulated by gamers. The malevolent, controlling rage meme user, and the benevolent, soft-hearted VTuber. It certainly explains why she can flip gravity. Alice Gold saved her from a visual novel, only to put her back in the media that she came from. Love Eternal. It may have been reality to Maya, but it was, after all, just a game. Thank you for watching this video, and a special thank you to Entheogen and Zach, who are, without a doubt, benevolent, soft-hearted gamers. They knew from the start that Love Eternal was just a game. This is one interpretation of Love Eternal. As always, I highly recommend playing it yourself and seeing what conclusions you draw. There's a lot of things about the game that I still can't totally parse. Like, what does Alice Gold comment about the God Seed mean? Why is Maya's dad all spidery when we see him? Which Oh My Goddess character would the Lace Entity like the most? If you think you have an answer for any of these, drop a comment, because I want to know. I'm going to wrap up a few of the loose ends that I have on my Patreon at patreon.com/thejenna. Also, if you like horror media and discussions about it, consider subscribing to this channel. I've got some great videos in the works on Resident Evil, Requiem, and more, and you don't want to miss that.